Zanella stood quietly at the edge of the fancy hall, holding a tray of tea with trembling hands. Her heart felt like it was breaking all over again. All around her, people were laughing, clapping, and celebrating. The room sparkled with lights, flowers, and expensive clothes. But none of that mattered to her. Her eyes were locked on one person, Malusi, the man who once held her hand and promised to love her forever. The same man who had left her without a word. Now he was standing proudly, smiling beside another woman, his new fiancée, Ketumetse. Zanele had never thought her life would turn out like this. She used to dream of being the bride beside Malusi, not the woman serving drinks at his engagement. Her chest tightened as she took slow steps forward. With every step, old memories rushed back. The late-night talks, the promises, the plans they made together. And then, the silence. The way he disappeared from her life like she never existed. But today wasn't about pain. It wasn't even about revenge. Today, Zanele had a purpose. Everyone else in the room thought she was just the caterer, just the quiet girl with the tray. But this tea she carried wasn't ordinary. There was something different in it, something meant to bring out the truth, something no one in the room was ready for. Zanele kept her face calm, her steps steady, but inside, her heart beat fast. She wasn't here to cry or beg. She was here to finally hear the words she deserved. And maybe, just maybe, to watch everything unfold the way it was meant to, in front of everyone who once looked down on her. 2 years ago, Zanele believed she had found her forever person. Malusi wasn't just her boyfriend, he was her best friend, her partner, her everything. They did everything together, laughed, cried, dreamed, and planned a future full of love. He told her she was the only one he could ever love. She believed him with her whole heart. When Malusi struggled with his small architecture firm, Zanele didn't think twice. She used her inheritance money, everything her late father left her, to help him grow his business. She paid rent, bought supplies, helped with marketing, and even skipped her own needs just to see him succeed. For a while, it seemed like they were building something beautiful. But then, things slowly changed. Malusi became distant. He stopped calling as much. He stopped talking about the future. Zanele thought maybe he was just stressed with work. She gave him space. She stayed loyal. She waited. But then, one day, he just vanished. No fight, no goodbye, no message. His phone stopped going through. He stopped answering her emails. One day, he was in her arms. And the next, it was like she never existed. Zanele was heartbroken and confused. She spent months crying, blaming herself, wondering what she did wrong. She searched for answers, but there were none. Until almost a year later, when a friend tagged her in a picture on social media, her heart stopped. It was Malusi, smiling beside another woman, a woman named Ketumetse. They were on vacation, holding hands, looking like they'd been together forever. Zanele's hands shook as she scrolled through the photos, dates, trips, matching outfits. That's when it hit her. Malusi didn't leave her because of stress or problems. He left her because he was already with someone else, while still living in her house, eating her food, spending her money. The betrayal was worse than any nightmare. And the worst part? The world never saw it. To everyone else, Malusi was just a successful man with a new love. But only Zanele knew the truth of how he got there, by breaking the woman who once gave him everything. One quiet afternoon, Zanele was sweeping the floor of the small cafe where she now worked when her phone buzzed. She wiped her hands and checked the screen. It was an email, a formal invitation to Malusi's engagement party. But that wasn't all. The invitation wasn't just asking her to attend, it was offering her a job. She was being asked to serve tea and snacks at the engagement ceremony of the very man who broke her heart, the man who vanished from her life without a word, the man who left her in the dark and built a new life with another woman. And to make it even worse, the email came from Ketumetse, his new fiancée, the same woman he was secretly dating while still living with Zanele. Zanele sat down slowly, heart pounding. Was this a joke, a cruel prank, or a calculated insult? Everyone she showed it to, her co-workers, her aunt, even her pastor, said the same thing. Don't go, Zanele. Delete it. Forget them. But Zanele didn't delete it. In fact, she stared at that invitation for days. She printed it out, folded it, held it like a secret, because deep inside her, something shifted. She wasn't over it, not even close. Her heart still had too many unanswered questions. Too many nights she cried without knowing why he left. Too many memories that didn't make sense until now. Zanele didn't want revenge. She wasn't angry in the way people thought. But she needed something only she could understand. Closure. She wanted to see Malusi face to face, to look him in the eye, to hear his voice when he saw her again, and maybe, just maybe, to make him speak the truth, even if for the first and last time. So she agreed to cater the event, quietly, without telling anyone what she was planning, not even her closest friend. She began preparing her menu with care. She picked her outfit with calm hands, but in her heart, she carried something powerful, a decision. Because this wasn't just about tea, and it definitely wasn't just about serving snacks. Zanele was walking straight into the heart of the storm, not to break anything, but to finally gather all the broken pieces of herself. And if she could leave that room with even one honest answer, it would all be worth it. Zanele stood in her small kitchen, staring at the ingredients in front of her. She had brewed rooibos tea 1,000 times before, but this time was different. This time, it wasn't just about making a drink. It was about finally hearing the truth. She reached into a small pouch she kept hidden deep in her drawer. Inside was a tiny bottle she got during a healing retreat in Limpopo. The retreat was meant to help her find peace, but what she found was something else. A truth serum, made from natural herbs. It wasn't dangerous. It wouldn't hurt anyone, but it had the power to open a person's heart and make them speak without filters. Only the truth. She hesitated for a moment, holding the bottle in her shaking hands. "I just want the truth," she whispered to herself. "No revenge, no harm, just the truth." With steady fingers, she added a few drops into one of the cups. The cup meant for Malusi. The day of the engagement arrived. The hall was glowing with lights, music and laughter. Everyone looked rich and happy. Zanele wore a simple dress and carried the tray like a professional. On the outside, she looked calm, but inside, her heart beat so fast it felt like it might explode. She walked past guests who didn't recognize her, all too busy praising Ketumetsa's beauty and Malusi's success. Finally, she reached the table where the couple sat. Malusi glanced at her, his smile slowly fading. Zanele didn't blink. She handed him the special cup, bowed politely, and walked away. Nobody noticed anything strange. Malusi lifted the cup and took a sip, then another. Everything seemed normal. But a few minutes later, it was time for his speech. He stood up, cleared his throat, and smiled at the crowd. Everyone clapped, expecting a sweet love story, a thank you message, or maybe a romantic proposal. But what came out of his mouth was something else. His words started soft, but then they turned honest. Too honest. He began talking about the past, about regrets, about someone he used, someone he left behind. Zanele watched from the corner, barely breathing. She saw confusion spread across the guests' faces. She saw Ketumetsa's smile slowly fade, and she knew the serum was working. The truth was starting to flow, and this was just the beginning. Malusi stood tall, holding his teacup high, ready to give a happy speech. Everyone smiled and waited. The music lowered, the clinking of glasses stopped, and all eyes turned to him. Zanele stood quietly in the corner, her hands clasped together, her heart racing. She knew something was about to happen. Malusi cleared his throat and smiled, but then something in his face changed. His smile twitched, his hands trembled slightly. I want to thank everyone for coming," he started, but his voice didn't sound strong. It sounded unsure. He paused and looked down at his cup, then at Ketumetsa beside him. She smiled at him, unaware of what was coming. I don't love Ketumetsa," he suddenly blurted out. The room froze. People gasped. Someone dropped a glass. Ketumetsa's smile disappeared. Her face turned pale, eyes wide in shock. Whispers ran through the room like a wave. Malusi looked around, confused, like he was trying to stop himself but couldn't. "I used her," he said, his voice cracking. "I thought I loved Zanele. She believed in me when I was nothing. She gave me her money, her time, her heart. But I chose success. I chose money over real love." No one said a word. Even the waiters froze. The silence was louder than any scream. Ketumetsa looked like she had been slapped. Her hands slowly dropped to her lap. Her eyes filled with tears, but no one moved to comfort her. Zanele stood still, her face calm. No anger, no tears, just stillness. She didn't need revenge. She didn't even need an apology. This truth, raw, messy, and spoken in front of everyone, was enough. Malusi's eyes found hers. He opened his mouth again, but no more words came. He looked broken, like a man realizing everything he built was now crashing down. The lies, the pride, the show, all gone in one honest moment. And all Zanele did was watch, as the truth finally did what she never could, break him. The hall turned into a storm within seconds. Ketumetse let out a loud, sharp scream that made everyone jump. Her beautiful dress shimmered under the lights, but her face was full of anger and betrayal. She threw her wineglass to the floor, and it shattered like her heart. The guests started whispering. Some got up from their seats, unsure of what to do. Cameras kept rolling. This was supposed to be a perfect engagement, but now it was a breaking news story. Malusi looked lost. His face was wet with sweat and his eyes filled with tears. Slowly he walked towards Zanele, past the stunned guests and clattering plates. His voice shook as he spoke. Zanele, I owe you everything. My success, my growth, my life. I owe it all to you. He reached out, trying to touch her hand. Maybe to ask for forgiveness. Maybe to hold on to the one real thing he ever had. But Zanele gently stepped back. Her face was calm, but firm. She looked him straight in the eyes and said, "You owe me nothing now, not even regret." Those words hit harder than a slap. Malusi's hand dropped. His shoulders sank. The truth had been spoken, and there was nothing left to hide behind. The room exploded into noise. Family members stood up and argued loudly. Ketumetsu's mother shouted. Her father grabbed his head in shame. Waiters dropped trays, and some guests quickly rushed outside to avoid the drama. Ketumetsu stormed out, pulling her long white dress behind her like a torn dream. Her heels clicked angrily on the floor. Her makeup, once perfect, now melted with tears. She didn't look back. She couldn't. And through it all, Zanele stood still, calm, in the middle of the chaos. She had walked into that hall with pain in her heart, but now she was leaving with peace. Not because someone begged for her forgiveness, but because the truth finally stood in the open, loud, clear, and unstoppable. As the guests slowly left the hall, their faces full of shock and whispers filling the air, Zanele stayed behind. She didn't rush. She didn't hide. Instead, she walked straight to the center of the hall, where everything had fallen apart just moments ago. There was no microphone in her hand, no music playing, just silence and her steady voice. She looked around at the people who once ignored her, who once thought she was just the poor ex, the forgotten girl. And then she spoke clearly and calmly. Let this be a lesson. When women give you their hearts, don't trade them for convenience. Don't take their love for granted, because when the truth arrives, it won't ask for permission. Her voice was not loud, but it cut through the silence like a sharp knife. Some people gasped. Some lowered their heads in guilt or shame. Others clapped softly, slowly, as if they had just seen someone rise from the ashes. Some just stared, completely still, unable to look away. Ketumetse was already gone. Malusi stood frozen near the table, his face pale, his world crashing down. He had been the center of attention, the man with the perfect image. But now, it was Zanele who owned the room. In that moment, she didn't look like a caterer. She didn't look like someone heartbroken or weak. She looked powerful. She looked free. People who once saw her as just a background character now saw her as the main story. The cameras were still rolling, but Zanele didn't care about the fame or the drama. She didn't do this to hurt anyone. She did it to speak the truth, and that truth echoed in every corner of the room. She turned and walked away slowly, her head held high, leaving behind broken lies, shocked guests, and a memory that no one in that hall would ever forget. By the time the sun came up, Zanele's face was everywhere. The video of her standing in the center of the engagement hall, calmly speaking the truth while the whole event crumbled around her, had already gone viral. It was on TikTok, Instagram, WhatsApp. Everywhere you looked, someone was sharing it. People started using the hashtag #TheTruth. Some were shocked, some were cheering, some were just watching it over and over again because they couldn't believe what they had seen. Africa was talking. From Gaborone to Lagos, Nairobi to Cape Town, people were discussing the bold young woman who stood her ground at her ex-fiancé's engagement and made him confess everything in front of his new fiancé, their families, and even the press. Everyone had something to say. Some said she was too dramatic. Others called her a queen. Some said she should have walked away silently. but more people praised her for speaking out when so many women stay quiet. Zanele's phone was buzzing non-stop. Her inbox was full. Some messages were mean, strangers calling her bitter, angry, or jealous. But most messages were full of love. Women from all walks of life wrote to her, saying, "You spoke for all of us." Others said they cried watching the video. Some shared their own stories of betrayal and heartbreak. Zanele read some of the messages, but she didn't reply to any of them. She wasn't looking for attention. She didn't do it for likes or fame. She sat on the edge of her bed, phone in hand, but her eyes looking out the window. The city was waking up, just like her spirit. She took a deep breath. For the first time in 2 years, the pain in her chest didn't feel heavy anymore. It was like something had been lifted, like a door had finally closed behind her. Zanele wasn't smiling, but she wasn't crying either. She was just calm, at peace. The world could say whatever it wanted. She'd spoken her truth, and now it was out there, spreading like fire, reminding everyone what happens when a woman who's been hurt finally decides to stop hiding. Weeks after the video went viral, Zanele got an email that surprised her. It was from a big international herbal tea company. They had seen the clip of Malusi's engagement and were amazed by how calm and strong she was. But what impressed them even more was the special tea she served, the one that made the truth come out. They wanted her to lead a campaign called Truth in Every Sip. The idea was simple. When people drink tea, they should feel calm, safe, and honest, just like how Zanele stood strong in the middle of chaos. At first, she wasn't sure. She wasn't looking to be famous. But then she had an idea. If she took this offer, she could finally do something she had dreamed of for a long time. She accepted the deal, not for the money or the spotlight, but to start something that would help others like her. She opened a small place called House of Reclaiming. It wasn't fancy, but it was full of warmth. Women who had been hurt, heartbroken, or left behind came there to talk, rest, and heal. Zanele would sit with them, serve tea, and listen to their stories. She didn't try to fix everything. She just gave them space, the same space she had once needed but didn't have. She taught them how to breathe, how to let go, and how to find peace again. Slowly, House of Reclaiming became more than a center. It became a safe place for women to find their strength again. Zanele didn't wear fancy clothes or chase fame. She wore simple dresses, tied her hair up, and smiled softly as the women around her found their voices again. In helping others heal, she healed herself. She finally felt free, not because the world had changed, but because she had. And in her quiet new life, surrounded by healing hearts and honest sips of tea, Zanele found something even better than love. She found peace. Months passed, and Zanele's wellness center was thriving. Women came from all over to heal, to find peace, and to reclaim their power. On the day of her big launch event for a new tea line, the room was full of love, light, and laughter. Everything felt calm. But then, unexpectedly, someone from her past walked in. Malusi. He wasn't invited. He looked nervous, standing alone in the corner, unsure if he should even be there. After some time, he slowly walked up to Zanele. His voice was low, his eyes full of regret. "I was a coward," he said quietly. "I still am. But I came to say, I'm sorry." Zanele looked at him for a moment. She didn't feel pain or anger anymore. She had moved past all that. She simply nodded and said, "That's all I ever needed. Not love, not a second chance, just the truth." Then, with a soft smile, she poured him a cup of tea. One last cup. No special ingredients, no tricks, no truth serum, just tea. Pure and simple. Malusi took it, held it in both hands, and sipped quietly. There were no whispers, no cameras, no drama this time. Just two people, sharing one last moment of honesty. For him, it was a silent goodbye. For her, it was peace, closure. Zanele didn't need to prove anything anymore. She had already won, not by revenge, but by healing. She gave him that last cup, not because he deserved it, but because she was free. And as he walked away, Zanele stood tall, smiling softly at the women around her, ready to pour the next cup, this time for someone who truly needed hope. This story moved you. Don't just scroll. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Tag a friend, a sister, or a queen who's ever been broken, and remind her, healing is power. Follow for more stories that stir your soul and speak your truth, because sometimes the last cup isn't revenge, it's peace.